I'm a type 1 diabetic. I require insulin to live, multiple times a day. When I was in middle school many years ago, we didn't have insulin pumps and had to use syringes and vials like everyone else. The school refused to let me carry it with me, meaning I had to go to the nurse's office several times a day to inject. It's not just before lunch, but could be any number of times depending on the current blood sugar levels. The district then cut nurse staff to just spending half a day at 2 schools, and the nurse left before I had lunch. I asked the office staff to unlock the office so I could take my insulin and eat lunch. They refused. By middle school, I'd been dealing with T1 for about 5 years and didn't take crap on the topic. I went to the school lobby, picked up the payphone, I just dated myself, and called 911, telling them, "Hi, I'm at school, I'm type 1 diabetic, and the office won't unlock a door and let me take insulin." They sent a fire truck, and a bunch of firemen met me outside and walked me to the office and asked, while ignoring the staff, which room was the nurse's office. I pointed to the door, and he was like, "Okay, boys, chop it down. This kid needs his insulin." Suddenly, the office secretary could unlock the door, and I didn't need to put it in the nurse's office every day anymore. Based fireman. Isn't it weird that thing humans commonly eat is poisonous to literally every domesticated animal? I mean, there's a pretty good chance that thing humans commonly eat is at least mildly poisonous to humans too. One of our quirks as a species is that we think our food is bland if it doesn't have enough poison in it. Humans have a really weird mix of mundane superpowers. We're not fast and don't have a lot of natural weaponry, but we're bizarrely tolerant to a broad range of toxins to the point that one toxin is considered a morning necessity for some to perform at work. Gotta love us. So before you ask why people aren't studying to become teachers anymore, emailed my students' parents to let them know he punched me in the face and broke my glasses, and they just emailed back with this. In an effort to break this routine, Redacted and I have come up with the idea to put a calming banana in his bag, and he'll eat it as soon as he gets to school. He may be hungry after the bus ride, and acting out from this, hoping that the calming banana can be his special superpower to get him back on track. Bringing this up so we can be on the same page. Mommy forgot my calming banana! I think people's perception of what a skinny or a fat body looks like are so warped in art. I've always thought that you could trace a photo of a real-life skinny person and people would praise you for your honest, body-positive depictions of women. Here, I did it myself, just to show the proportions of a literal skinny body. I traced the picture of Taylor Swift, a thin woman. For fun, I also edited it to look like what people expect a skinny body to look like in art. I'm not saying this art style is bad, I have partaken myself, but it makes me so uncomfortable when people praise thin to average bodies in art as plus-sized. They aren't plus-sized. That's just what bodies look like. My tweets encountered in the wild? You should have posted the actual picture of Taylor Swift along with it to really drive it home. I think it's this one. I'm not a classicist, but I suspect one of the reasons so many of the Greek gods are portrayed so unflatteringly was less because they were seen as villains than because they represented their domains. Of course Zeus sometimes misuses his power, that's what a king does. Of course Artemis's wrath is wild and painful, that's what nature can be. Of course Hades snatched away a young girl from her mother's arms, that's what death does. This is one of the reasons call-out posts for some gods, comparing them negatively to nicer gods, are kind of missing the point. As someone who is partially a classicist, this is a better analysis of Greek mythology as a whole than 99.95% of the takes I've seen on here, and a substantial number of the takes I've seen in academia. Bad news, I got rejected from a job that I wanted. Good news, they gendered me correctly in the rejection letter. Bad news, they inexplicably think my name is Stefan. Dear bookselling team, thank you for your prompt response. I'm sure Stefan will be very disappointed to hear this news. Fortunately, I am not he. Undoubtedly, there has been a mix-up, wherein I received Stefan's rejection letter, and Stefan received my email inviting me for an interview next week. I'll keep an eye on that careers page. Best wishes, Elliot Skinner. The cheeky shall inherit the earth. Update, I got the job. My favorite Greek history story to tell is that of Ignatus. Like, she noticed that women were dying a lot during childbirth, so she went to Egypt to study medicine in Alexandria and was really friggin' good. But because it was illegal for women to be doctors in Athens, she had to pretend to be a man. And then the other doctors noticed that she was 10 times better than them and accused her of flirting and sleeping with the women patients. Like, they brought her to court for this. And she just looked at them and these charges and disrobed in front of everyone like, yeah, I'm not friggin' your wives. And then they got so mad that a woman was better at their jobs than them that they tried to execute her, but all her patients came to court and were like, are you friggin' serious? She is the reason you have living children and a wife. So they were shamed into changing the law, and that is how women were given the right to practice medicine in Athens. In case anyone doesn't know, Club Penguin Rewritten was a fan project that started 5 years ago. A team of independent artists and developers successfully revived Club Penguin and had a community of 11 million up until today. They even rewrote all the code for HTML5 after Flash was taken down, and we're always coming out with custom parties, items, and content. Today, we learned this. Club Penguin Rewritten is shutting down effective immediately due to a full request by Disney. We have voluntarily given control over the website to the police for them to continue their copyright investigation. As they investigate, they have been deleting code. Now if you go to the website, you see this. This site has been taken over by Operation Creative Police Intellectual Property Crime Unit. Frig Disney, frig everything they do, and everything they stand for. Frig your crappy movies, frig your crappy politics, and frig the way you destroy everything you touch. Frig your copyright too. What do you mean Finster got banned from Twitch for female-presenting badonker streaming? How does that even happen? The first male to be banned for female-presenting bazonga streaming. Talk about setting records. I'm obsessed with Twitch apparently hopping on the Tumblr train of female-presenting calcium cannons, especially in this context. Finn identifies as a male, but his shoulder boulders don't, apparently. Details. While fixing my bra, this was seen as prolonged touching of female-presenting chesticles. There's 2 rule sets, and Twitch don't warn if they see you as female presenting. As a man, touching your chest can now be bannable depending on how feminine Twitch sees you. Smiley face. I was joking. POV, you're having a mental breakdown in the Pokemon universe and have a solid 50% chance of having your spine broken or getting an egg. No matter who you are, if you bring strong emotions near this Pokemon, it will silence you violently. Blissey senses sadness with its fluffy coat of fur. If it does so, this Pokemon will rush over to a sad person, no matter how far away, to share a lucky egg that brings a smile to any face. Good job, I'll only have breakdowns near Blissey's. Me, sobbing and crying. The Blissey that charged in from 5 miles away and broke into my house. I think my favorite part of the Thor trilogy is how at the end of Dark World, we saw this, and we all just went, oh crap, Loki's king, everyone's frigged. But then Ragnarok rolled around, and it turns out all he does is watch plays of himself and build big statues. Like, hot damn, the Avengers really wasted a whole movie trying to stop this hag when they could have just written him a play and built him a statue and he would have been satisfied. He also built rails on the bridge so people would stop falling off of it. All the man wants is some entertainment and basic safety. He financed the arts and public infrastructure. Schwarzenegger winning seemed like the most embarrassing thing that would ever happen in politics at the time. And now he's to the left of every elected Republican and a few Democrats, and just makes videos going, young men, my father was a National Socialist, and he was a contemptible loser. Can't believe I lived under one of the better governors California ever had. And it was a guy who starred in an MPreg film with Danny DeVito. For everyone losing their crap in the notes, the movie is called Junior, and Arnie is the pregnant one. Minecraft for the last few years has had maybe the most confused development direction of all time. There's one guy at Minecraft who's under the impression they're making an educational game to teach kids about different types of igneous rocks and what foods are bad for what animals. And another guy at Minecraft who's under the impression he's making Skyrim Remastered, Blocks Edition. And one guy who's watched YouTubers and is under the impression they're designing Industrial Slaughter Simulator 2024. And all of them live in separate offices and add their updates independently of each other and don't know the others exist. Judy Hopps is a cop who leverages a stranger's felony tax evasion to get him to put his life in danger and work around the clock so that she can keep her job. She then presumably helps him cover up his crime to get him a job on the same police force. Judy Hopps has some very nice feet, but we need to remember that she's still a cop. Just FYI for everyone out there using Tumblr on this day, that you can reblog a post without the extra commentary by clicking the OP's URL on the original post. You shouldn't call the Zootopia red hot. She's a cop, and all cops are already unhot. I'm sorry not sorry to everyone in the notes, just learning that Tumblr is a place for freaky furries to blog about ACAB. Unfortunately, Judy Hopps is very hot, and also a cop, and therefore a scoundrel, and insisting that all cops are automatically unhot is still attaching appearances to morality. Remembering that things can be hot and evil, or ugly and good, is imperative. Forgetting this derails and disrupts the conversation. The funniest meltdown I've ever had was in college, when I got so overstimulated that I could not speak, including over text. One of my friends was trying to talk me through it, but I was solely using emojis because they were easier than trying to come up with words, so he started using primarily emojis as well, just to make things feel balanced. This was not the most effective strategy, until he tried to ask me, "You okay?" But the way he chose to do that was by sending tri-finger butthole, and I was so shocked by suddenly being asked if I was down to frig that I was like, "What? What did you just say to me?" And thus was verbal again. There are a fair few faux feminist statements I hate, but "we are the daughters of the witches you couldn't burn" is one of them. Historically inaccurate understanding of both who was persecuted by the witch trials and how those persecuted were typically dealt with. Check. Trivializing the torture and live immolation of real, actual people by implying they somehow weren't strong or clever enough to avoid being burned at the stake. Check. Invoking a legacy that categorically does not belong to them in an attempt to claim an oppression they and their ancestors never faced. Check. I think one big reason why we don't consider the stars as important as before, not even pop astrology anymore cares about the stars or the sky on itself, just the signs deprived of context, is because of light pollution. For most of human history, the sky looked between 1 and 3, 4 at most, and then all of a sudden, with electrification, it was gone. I'm lucky if I get 6 in my small city. The first time I saw the Milky Way fully as a kid was a spiritual experience. I was almost scared on how bright it was. It felt like someone was looking back at me. You don't get that at all with modern light pollution. When most people talk about stargazing nowadays, they think about watching a couple of bright dots. The stars are really not like that. The unpolluted night sky is a festival of fireworks. There is nothing like it. Unlikely simultaneous historical events. A poster on Reddit asks, what are 2 events that took place in the same time in history but don't seem like they would have? Spain was still a fascist dictatorship when Microsoft was founded. There were no classes in calculus in Harvard's curriculum for the first few years because calculus hadn't been discovered yet. 2 empires, Roman and Ottoman, spanned the entire gap from Jesus to Babe Ruth. When the pyramids were being built, there were still woolly mammoths. The last use of the guillotine was in France the same year Star Wars came out. Oxford University was over 300 years old when the Aztec Empire was founded. I know it's less of a shock if you read His Last Bow, but it does blow my mind a bit that there's an entire collection of ACD home stories that were written and published after World War I. My personal favorite is that Victorian England, the American Old West, and the Meiji Restoration were all contemporary. You could have a proper Victorian gentleman, an American cowboy, and a dispossessed samurai sharing drinks at the same bar. And while the scenario would be unusual, it's not actually ahistorical. Naturally, this is most relevant if you're a gamer. So when I was getting ready today, I very quickly put on a lab coat and some cat ears, not even trying to have something coherent, just wanting to have some kind of costume. And then I used some eyeliner to draw some whiskers on my face, so yeah, that's my costume, cat in a lab coat. Does it make sense? No. Who cares? Still wearing the same skirt and striped knee-high socks from yesterday, but that's just my work clothes. But then, when I got to my office in the physics department, one of my colleagues was immediately like, "Oh, Schrodinger's cat girl!" It both was and was not a coherent costume until someone observed you and collapsed the waveform. On planet where everyone can teleport, the first person on the moon went there by accident and promptly died. The next dozen or so people also went by accident and also died. Number 14 figured out that people who go to the moon die, and very cleverly brought a sword and 6 weeks of travel rations. This did not help. No one on planet where everyone can teleport ever figured out why people die in space, because they don't need airplanes and never found it particularly interesting to climb tall mountains. Astronomers use telescopes to take pictures of the ever-growing pile of corpses on the moon. Why don't they teleport back? Because they're not on the planet where everyone can teleport anymore. Try to keep up, dumb butt. This feels like a fable that would have some kind of moral, but I'm not quite sure what. Something about like hard work, effort, the need to be curious, I don't know. The moral of the story is that a breathable atmosphere is important to one's general well-being. My friend Dylan is such a profound person, and yet so simple at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Is this the guy you accidentally trained with food? No, that was Matthew, who's in my frat. Dylan is my ecology major friend who's too wholesome for his own good. He talks to plants reassuringly when he's moving them. He says stuff like, "You're so strong, you're going to grow so well, you're doing so good," while he's putting them in the ground. He giggles in the shower. He goes bird watching and will talk about birds for hours if prompted. I'm talking about a 21-year-old cishet male, by the way. Other Dylan anecdotes. anecdotes. One time I, lesbian, pointed out a girl I thought was really hot. Dylan looked at her, smiled, and said, "Ah, yeah, she is cute. You just want to give her a hug." And that's how he talks about women. He walked into his roommate having gay coitus on the floor of their dorm and not only failed to realize they were having coitus, he stepped over them to grab his laptop before leaving again. After this, his roommate was like, "Well, I guess you know I'm gay." And Dylan said, "You are?" Because he did not realize they were having coitus and thus did not realize his roommate was gay. Are there any cyberpunk artists who depict just like average or realistic women in their drawings? I don't know why dystopia somehow produces killer hips and pouty lips. Tonight in Reddit headlines that made me laugh. I like in the comments, some people are like, well, obviously people are getting body mods, and who wouldn't choose to make themselves hot? And it's like, folks, if we're living in the cyberpunk dystopia and I'm getting myself modded up, I'm not going to go for hot Cupid doll. I'm gonna have myself turn into like a 7-foot-tall monstrosity with Doc Ock arms and laser eyes. Look, I don't care if some extra bulk has to be added around my midsection to support the infrastructure. I could give a crap about my waist to hip ratio. I just want to be able to scale walls, snatch helicopters out of the sky, and throw them at Jeff Bezos. Cyberpunk future, where society is divided between supermodel/anime-esque exaggerations of the idealized human form and inhuman utilitarian agglomerations of cables and lights and technology. Ah yes, the two genders, K-pop star and tank. Bilingual kids are fun to witness. Was walking our neighbor's dog today and walked past a playground where I overheard a conversation between a mother, presumably, and her 2 to 3 year old kid. The kid kept repeating "Aua," which both me and apparently the mother interpreted as "Auta, help me," getting progressively more frustrated. And the mom kept telling him, in Finnish, that "Sweetie, I don't know what you want me to help you with. You've got to use more words to explain what the problem is." And after accepting that repeating "Aua" with more and more stress on the word wasn't working, the kid yelled out one word in clear Swedish, "Hund." And while I don't understand much Swedish, I do know some words, including that one, dog. I looked up at the woman and kid at the park, and the kid was pointing straight at me and the dog, and the woman seemed to pierce this together in lockstep with me. The kid hadn't been saying "Auta," but "Helva," doggy, and after realizing that he couldn't pronounce enough consonants to make the word clear, he had no choice but to resort to another language. The way most autism literature describes literal interpretation is often not at all similar to how I experience it. Teenage me even thought I couldn't be autistic because I've always been able to learn metaphors easily. In fact, I love wordplay of all kinds. Teenage me was fascinated to learn all the types of figurative language there are in poetry and literature. But paperwork and questionnaires are hard because there's so much they don't state clearly, or they don't leave room for enough nuance. List all the jobs you've had with start and end dates. What if I don't remember the exact day or month? Is the year enough? Have you been suffering from blurred vision? Well, if I take off my glasses, the whole world is blurred, but I'm fairly sure that's not what the intake form at the optometrist is asking. Or the infamous and infuriatingly stereotypical, would you rather go to a library or a party? What sort of party? Where? Who's there? I work at a library. Am I currently at the library for work or pleasure? Does it have a good collection? It's not common figures of speech that confound me. It's ambiguity in situations that aren't supposed to be ambiguous. If your characters are furries, consider giving some love to animals besides foxes, cats, and wolves. One thing I didn't expect from my new world-building book is the author, roughly my dad's age, including his opinions on furries. I invented an alien race once that used different pronouns on land and underwater. They were amphibians and had the inclusive/exclusive and proximate/obviative distinctions. They also had a pronoun for group minds and pronouns for each of their 3 genders. The complete list was impressive. I'm liking this guy more and more. In the future, possibly anything goes. In my sci-fi world, the Incatina, gender changes are routine, which makes nonsense out of most present-day moralisms and even earnest debates about evolutionary psychology. But why stop there? It's easy to imagine modified bodies allowing new genders, new coitus acts, and new perversions. I have a new favorite author. Biggest indicator of US decline. You could buy 6 Big Macs with 1 hour of minimum wage in 1980, but today, you can't even buy 1, despite minimum wage more than doubling. Minimum wage, $3.10 versus $7.25. Big Mac, 50 cents versus $8. Big Macs per hour, 6.2 versus 0.91. It's over. F's for the USA. Explaining purchasing power collapse to an American. Imagine no burger. If we wanted to have the same purchasing power today, minimum wage would be $49.60. I remember in my Arabic class, we were going over the alphabet, and the teacher was like, there's no P, etc. And this white girl was like, wait, what? But my name's Paige. And my teacher was like, lol, then we'd pronounce it as beige. And she was so offended. I'm crying thinking about it. One of my mom's friends, Hugh, went to France, and they had a lot of trouble pronouncing his name because the entire thing was silent. Salut, je m'appelle. Redacted. Regarding that no P sound in Arabic thing, I had an Egyptian friend in college who told me about trying to understand what her dad meant by there's some female dogs in the fridge. He meant peaches. I'm laughing so hard at the idea of a French person looking at the name Hugh written out and just being silent. Apparently, I found a canon trans lady in the battle maison. Cute! Don't black belt women exist though? Black belts are an all-male trainer class within the game. Oh, duh, right. I took this completely out of context. It's Pokemon. Reasons I love X and Y. This is just a mistranslation, you frigheads. I hate to break your bubble, but no, it's not. In Japanese, she says, "Ore wa chinchin ga daisuki nandeyo. Nihongo wa muzakashii desu ne," which literally means to think I was a black belt just half a year ago. Modern medicine sure is amazing. As an extra bonus, black belts are referred to in Japanese as karateo, which means karate king and is explicitly male. Extra bonus. She's a known thing in the Japanese fandom, and there's somewhat tasteless fan art of her. TLDR, keep your stupid transphobic assumptions to yourself, moron. I love that the Japanese is even more clear than the translation. Pokemon Heritage Post. Because Catholicism and by extension Christianity are so big and normal, I don't think a lot of people consider how strange the Vatican is, just conceptually. Like, yeah, in the capital of the long-dead empire, there's an opulent temple district that acts as its own sovereign nation, still speaking the dead language of that empire for their rituals, ruled by a prophet king chosen by a secret conclave of the high priesthood. Yeah, his followers eat a lot of fish in the spring. People forget, the Pope had his own actual kingdom over the middle part of the boot not too long ago. He lost it to Italian nationalism, but the funny thing is that not even the nationalism could convince Italian Catholics to invade the Pope's house. His lands, sure, that's no problem, but the holy place, second only to Jerusalem itself, that was off limits. The peace treaty basically said, we are good Catholics, and did not annex the Papal States. Please don't launch a crusade against us. Look, he still has a kingdom, it's just really small now. We gotta stop aiming for unique and interesting baby names. We gotta start naming every single infant straight shot, middle of the road, but popular common gender neutral names like Alex and Sam. By the end of 2031, I wanna see 100% of kindergarten children named either Alex or Sam. And you know what? Let's make them all Smiths and Johnsons too. In an age of digital tracking, give your baby the gift of total functional anonymity within the Panopticon. If Elon Musk owned Tumblr, he would nuke your blog for this, and I would die with honor at the hands of a fool. The reason robot racism is often a really stupid metaphor is the same reason that like discrimination against demons or vampires or whatever doesn't work. It's because there's often a pretty justified reason humans are scared of vampires or robots or whatever, in a way that doesn't apply to real life minorities. Like a fantasy author will be like, the reason vampires are discriminated against is because most of them kill and eat people for fun and pleasure, and so humans respond by trying to kill them. Isn't that so sad? And like, no, that's a perfectly fine reason to not trust vampires, I think. Sci-fi writers will be like, every robot on Earth randomly decide to kill all humans for no real reason, and now people don't trust robots. And this is a metaphor for racism. I like how at Five Guys they're like, oh, you want one burger? Okay, one little burger. And then the guy cooking the burger is like, one little burger for baby bundles of sticks that can only handle one patty coming up. And then if you can't finish it, they make you wear a maid costume and handcuff you to the sink in the men's bathroom. Are the carnists okay? Yeah, I don't work at a carnival or anything, but I'm good, I'm okay. I appreciate you asking, yo. Carnist is the name for someone who consumes corpse and other animal products, such as chili con carne or carnivore. You are perhaps thinking of carny. Oh, okay, pretty common mistake, no problem, dude. But yeah, I don't even really go to carnivals or anything, even as an attendee. My manager was like, I found the best video on YouTube. And I said, oh? And he said, it's called 1 hour of silence periodically interrupted by the sound of a metal pole clanking, and proceeded to play it. Every time the pole clanks, he spooks like a wild horse and keeps getting more and more frustrated. We're about 20 minutes in, and he's like, God, I can't wait for this to be over, refusing to turn it off. I went to the bathroom and still heard the metal pole clanks, and heard him say, How am I supposed to prepare myself for this? We offer 3 kinds of service: good, cheap, fast. You can pick any 2. Good service cheap won't be fast. Good service fast won't be cheap. Fast service cheap won't be good. A sign every artist and crafter should have on their site and window. When I get my site up and running, I'm putting this on the commission/payment page. Crap, this sign should be hung in any business that provides a service to others. Addendum, any of these can be duplicated. Want it fast fast, not cheap or good. Want it good good, not fast or cheap. And lastly, with increasing relevance in this world of encrapification, want it cheap cheap, not good or fast. Was chatting to another nurse about the floor I'm on right now, and that nurse said, referring to the charge nurse tonight, "Oh yeah, she's a power-hungry monster. She'd be charge nurse every shift if she could." And then later, the nurse said she had only stayed long, a 16-hour shift. Can you imagine? Because her girlfriend was also working late. And I was like, "Oh, who's your girlfriend?" And the nurse said, "It's the charge nurse." And I was like, "The power-hungry monster?" And the nurse was like, "Yes." A new cat color has been spotted in Finland. This is really interesting. A lot of common cat coat patterns have only evolved in the last 1,000 years. The tabby cat coloration only evolved in the Middle Ages. They're calling it salty licorice because of its visual similarity to the popular Finnish sweet. It reminds me of blue tick coloring in dogs or the blue roan coloring in horses and cows. I love when a cat is posing for a photo documenting it. Bro, you are a specimen and you have no idea. Every time someone says, "Look how they're looking at each other, they're in love," about a non-canon ship, I just think of the Kuleshov effect for a second. But then I come to my senses and decide to have fun. Okay, I'm going to explain the Kuleshov effect because I'm a film student and it's fascinating to me. Basically, it's the principle of film storytelling that states that you can juxtapose a blank expression with an image and the audience will read a different emotion from the expression depending on the juxtaposed image. It's incredibly interesting to me. Most offensive thing to happen in the Lilo and Stitch remake. Nani gives up custody of Lilo so she can go to college. Stitch fart jokes, Jumba fat jokes, no tourism commentary or colonialism commentary, no Gantu. Instead, Jumba is never redeemed and is just an evil criminal. No ugly duckling story. Stitch never shows his alien form to Lilo, nor has his Ohana scene with Nani. Pleakley doesn't cross-dress. They forgot to look up if Leroy was even Jumba's experiment before making a cameo. Ohana means family scene is a comedy bit now. TikTok joke, other. Specify, I like getting angry. They, one word, is shorter than he or she. 3 words. They is more inclusive than he/she. Themself flows more naturally than him or herself. They is less clunky than she. It's time to replace the awkward she or he. Hey, can you go ask they what does they want for dinner? And when is they coming over to watch movies with they? Hey, can you go ask them what they want for dinner? And when they're coming over to watch movies? Step 1 is learning how to talk like a human person. Completely ignores the basic rules of English grammar. Using they/them doesn't make sense, sweaty smiley face. Obituaries in the South are so funny. They'll be talking about a man who spent his 72 years on this earth torturing his family and terrorizing the small town he was born into, and saying crap like, he ascended to his eternal reward, he rose to glory. Like, no baby he did not. Was called home is my favorite euphemism, because it fails to mention if it was God or Satan who wanted him back. Saw one that said he was a man that everyone knew. The carefully implied insult in that sentence is so crazy. That obituary writer was playing chess with words. Today I learned about a 3,000-year-old Chinese tradition called ghost marriages, or the marriage of 2 people who died single. In some cases, the parents of unmarried men buy female corpses so their sons could have a wife in the afterlife. I really want to read the book of 2 ghosts who wake up in the afterlife, only to find out they've been married to each other by their living families, and now they have to go and haunt their relatives for a ghostly divorce, but they end up becoming best friends in the process. They were 2 mates. Oh my god, they were 2 mates. Our kid has gotten really into age-appropriate sci-fi books and has been full of odd questions I don't know how to answer in a way that wouldn't make her feel weird for asking them. Today I overheard her walk up to her dad and ask him where we keep our oxygen tanks. He asked, "What?" "Oxygen tanks for the house," she clarified. And without skipping a goddamn beat, he casually answers, "We don't need those. We're on a grass planet." And he carried on to explain how Earth's surface is covered in plants and that the plants produce all the oxygen we need. And she was glued on spot, listening, eyes wide, when he went into detail about how photosynthesis works. No parenting class would ever have prepared me for having my kid ask me why we don't need artificial oxygen storage. Nor would it have ever crossed my mind that the right answer to that is, not on this planet. Me, did you know that medieval cathedrals weren't actually supposed to be dark and rundown places with only stained glass as color? They were bright places full of light. The reason they look like that now is because of the centuries of accumulated grime and dust. Here, look at this restoration of the Cathedral of Chartres in France. It's based on actual paint from the times, and when you think about it, it makes a lot more sense. After all, a church is supposed to be a bright place of hope, yet when we think about the Middle Ages, we think about grimy and dark cathedrals. I wonder how much of our conception of history is shaped by our current visions of historical buildings. Churches are a good metaphor for the church. Who'da thunk? Thinking of the larger context of Lord of the Rings and like the Fellowship swapping old war stories and crap, and Sam just says, "Yeah, I killed a huge spider, Shelob I think," and Gandalf just blinks and is like, "You what now?" "Yeah, killed it. Had to save Frodo." Gandalf elects not to tell Sam that he killed the spawn of a primordial demon, the daughter of the embodiment of darkness, which ate the original sun and moon and almost ate the devil. That's not important. What is important is that it was a danger to Mr. Frodo. More vampires should have obsessive weird hobbies. I'm making a stop-motion animated film out of bonsai trees. I've been at it since the 70s. It's 3 minutes long. I've been raising parrots purely for intelligence. This is Arnaldo. He can do basic multiplication. He's my 5th generation African grey. Like, you got endless amounts of time. Make weird stuff. This is a tapestry I made myself. I just finished it. This is big. 80 feet long, 10 high, and 40 panels. It was originally going to be 60 feet, but then the Thomas Mallory Arthuriana got big, and I had to put more stuff in. Mallory published in the 15th century. Do you have any idea how long it takes one person to embroider 8,000 square feet of tapestry? You've had a lot of free time in the last 800 years, haven't you? Not once I took up embroidery as a hobby, no! Want to see my stalagmite cultivation work? Now this is why I'd want to be immortal. Trans politician Zoe Zephyr is getting Twitter canceled by the right for tweeting freaky Genshin Impact fan art. This is in fact a real thing that's happening. Say what you want about the Republican Party, but they provide some absolutely mind-numbingly bizarre moments. I'm sorry, who's getting what for what now? Trans rep Zoe Zephyr tweets violent cartoon. My ideal relationship with a man. This is my ideal relationship with a man. One where I'm on top of him and also ready to end his life. I think we need more politicians who are extremely online trans femme weebs, because if nothing else, it produces some very funny headlines. A news site called Windows Central just posted a headline. 57% of all content on the web is AI generated. They're misquoting a Forbes article that said 57% of all text-based content on the web is AI generated, which itself was also a misquote of a study saying 57% of all text translations on the web are machine generated. Figured I should give everyone a heads up. Honey, you've got a big storm coming. For all the, "Oh my god, dead internet theory is real" posting coming up. You're so entrenched in online discourse that it's starting to dilute your perception of what an actual problem is. People on Twitter, "Having decorative pillows makes you part of the bourgeoisie." People in real life, "Hey man, how's it going?" Genuinely partially agree with the people on Twitter. Nobody needs a pillow collection that says "live, laugh, love," especially when they're never used as actual pillows. It's like buying an off-road car as a farmer and keeping it in the garage to only be looked at and admired. Having things with form over function in mind is a luxury problem that wouldn't be a thing in a not classist environment in which you constantly compete with everyone else about who has the perfect life. I also think that if you still disagree, you probably have lost control over your own life choices, or may have never had any. Hey man, how's it going? Reddit's tech help threads may heckle you for being an amateur, but at least they don't try to gaslight you like Adobe help threads. You think I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. It's normal for apps to use as much memory as they want. Why is it a problem? Better to use it than leave it idle. You said memory went up to 95%. You also said it overheated and crashed. No connection that I can see between these things. It's normal for systems to work hard, get hot, and use the fan. Crashing isn't normal, so please describe this in detail. We may be able to help you if you'll stop insisting there's a memory problem and work with us on the real problem. If you've already made your mind up, we can't offer any help. Adobe programs cannot crash or overheat your computer. That is not possible for any application program. It is one of the tasks of the OS to supervise programs and the hardware and to make the necessary tweaks. This almost always points to a faulty system. I don't know when we decided that explaining yourself shouldn't be part of an apology, but like, if someone was a Richard to me and apologizes but I still don't understand why they did it, I'm not gonna feel any better. Sorry for hurting your feelings earlier. I was trying to say X, but I guess it came across wrong. I don't think you're stupid. Or, sorry I snapped at you. I didn't get enough sleep last night, so my patience is a little low today. Is a better apology then? I want you to know that I'm sorry that my actions offended you. I take full accountability for my actions, and I'm listening and learning. I hear you. So many things are out of kids' control. Uncomfy clothes, loud noises, icky food, confusing rules. As an adult, I make my own choices. I wear, eat, and do what I like, because if I don't, I get overloaded. That's why I don't remind you of your 8-year-old autistic nephew. I can't begin to express the difference it makes, just that I'm able to wear exclusively t-shirts, baggy shorts, and flip-flops. And the thing is, right, what you notice is that I'm wearing something slightly odd for the weather. What you don't notice is that I'm not curled up with my hands clamped over my ears because socks make the clinking plates in the restaurant too loud. Today I introduced my sister to the problem of Susan, and I had to explain to her that Susan was left out of Narnia because she liked boys and lipstick now. And without missing a beat, she said, but what about Peter? Does Peter not like girls? And I knew she was pointing out the inherent misogyny at the center of the problem of Susan. But the implications of that question are a source of much hilarity to me. Lumfowl, like, does Peter not like girls? Does he like boys? Is he gay? Is Narnia really just a gay utopia where Lucy is also a lesbian and Edmund is a bi disaster and Susan was kicked out because she was too straight? Can I make C.S. Lewis turn over in his grave with this new reading? I mean, they literally were in the closet. They were literally in the closet. I appreciate the sentiment behind posts like, if you can learn how to pronounce European surname, you can learn how to pronounce non-European surname. But it does unfortunately rely on the base assumption that your average English speaker actually does make an effort to pronounce European surnames correctly. Like, it definitely is still racism when people are like, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that one, about a Japanese or Swahili name, but you need to understand that English speakers do this when talking about Irish and Polish names too. In New Zealand, there is a man legally known as the Wizard, who is an educator, comedian, magician, and politician. Some of his political ideas include abolishing old-fashioned gender roles, traveling to find the center of the universe, replacing God in the church with wizardry in the World Wide Web. Wizard, the. This is the Wizard. Reblog in 35 seconds to reveal the secrets of the center of the universe and abolish old-fashioned gender roles. The Wizard of New Zealand is not just legally named the Wizard so he can appear on his driver's license that way. He is actually, literally, officially the Wizard of New Zealand and was appointed to that role by Prime Minister Mike Moore in 1990. Terry Pratchett's side character. Worm. I found myself in a bad spot, dying of thirst. I didn't call out to God for help. I didn't believe. But it came anyway. Its voice rang out, incomprehensible. It shook my organs. Its touch stung my skin, and I perceived a horrible taste. Its form was as complex as the earth. Suddenly, I was thrust into a dimension I never could have imagined before. The ether rushed past me at incredible speed. Before I knew it, I was home. Poor thing. Let's get you back where you belong. Would you still love me if I was a worm? I think Moby Richard might be cosmic horror. Captain Ahab is like, you don't understand, it's not a whale. God is an evil master controlling every living human like a puppet. Free will is an illusion. We are caught in a cruel trap made by God. That whale is the mask of that God. He thinks if he can kill the whale, he can break humanity free of the bonds of God. And our narrator boy Ishmael is like, I think it might just be a big whale and you have trauma. But then, at the end, Ishmael sees it and he's like, oh no, it's God. Unfortunate. Anyway, Gerard Dubois' Moby Richards sells me on the cosmic horror whale. Not one of the most important pieces of evidence against intelligent design, but maybe the one I think about the most frequently is lead. It's wild that there's a substance that's incredibly easy to obtain, even at rudimentary levels of technological development, and incredibly easy to work with, and incredibly useful for a huge range of purposes, and it also poisons and kills you, but very slowly. And this is only relevant to humans because other animals can't smelt ore. God's buck wild for this one. Put it in glass, it makes it better. Put it on ceramics, it makes them better. Put it in paint, it makes it better. Put it in gasoline, it makes it better. Put it on your roof, put it in your water pipes, so much to where you name the entire concept of plumbing after it. But watch out, lol. Yesterday, this girl in my academic writing class sits down next to me and puts 3 bananas on the desk, which was jarring by itself. And I had 2 bananas in my backpack. So I wanted to see if she would notice if I added those to her banana pile when she wasn't looking. And when she finally looked back at the bananas, she sighed and said really quietly to herself, oh my God, I have so many, and put all 5 of them in her backpack. Okay, it's not that funny. It is that friggin' funny. I hate it when game devs put fix several issues in patch notes. No, tell me what you fixed. I want to know what the glitch was. You know those patch notes that are like, fixed an issue, or if the player sat in a bush for too long, they'd become the size of a skyscraper. I want to read those. Tell me those. Team Fortress 2 update released. Fixed a bug where players could be teleported to hell and not have visible bumper car. Dwarf Fortress. Babies don't start strapped with a knife. Stopped vampires from pinning their crimes on babies and children. Stopped zombie cats from adopting dwarves. Stopped ghosts from maintaining secret identities. Stopped dwarves from trying to clean their own missing or internal body parts. Made strangulation take less time. Demons masquerading as gods will try a little harder. Adjusted value of bees. Whenever I play Dark Souls 3, I never ember before a boss. I treat embering like it's my second phase and I'm the boss fight. So when I'm half out of Estus, I'll go ember mode and play more aggressive. It's especially cool when you're against a Lord of Cinder and they ember at the same time as you. I'll even mutter things to myself like, impressive, but can you face this Asha Lighteth? Or, humph, enough playing, let's finish this. This is the guy they made video games for. Literally nobody else. Video James himself. It's him, John Darksoul. There is something to be said for going to zoos and aquariums on weekdays to avoid school-aged crowds, but going to the aviary on a weekend is fun, because going into big greenhouses and watching toddlers who just learned to walk encounter loose tropical animals taller than they are is part of the overall experience for me. To me, a 3-year-old is just as much an entertaining and strange beast as an egret, and here they can interact directly. Incredible. Listening to a macaque say peekaboo at a preschooler who takes it at face value that some birds must be completely fluent in English and no one has bothered to mention this before. Unmatched. Getting work done on my house and the contractor was like, I saw your sign. Are you in the community or an ally? And I was like doing the major side eye and was hesitantly like, in the community? And the guy whips out his phone and goes, cool, let me show you a picture of my daughter and her 4 kids and her wife. And did you know the baby is theirs biologically, which is very cool. And then I got to listen to him tell me all about being an ally and how much he loves the LGBT community. And also, he thinks it's despicable all the friends they lost when his daughter came out and they haven't won the best yard since they put a pride flag out, and how it's about making sure people have safe spaces and know they aren't alone. To my complete astonishment, I really did get the full essay from him. I've seen posts going around claiming that petting animals is basically tricking them into thinking they're being groomed. And it's bugging me because, like, there's no trickery afoot. Petting and scritching are grooming activities. They help to dislodge loose fur and foreign objects, and more evenly distribute protective oils, among other things. Primates are social groomers, and the human impulse to scritch is the legacy of our primate ancestors. We see an animal we like, even a dangerous one, and the monkey brain says, groom that thing. Sucking a guy's Richard is basically tricking him into thinking he's having coitus. I miss having a cat because one of life's small joys is tossing that thing over your shoulder like a frickin' sack of potatoes and abducting them for some cuddle time. Ew, no. Cats aren't humans, but that doesn't mean their consent doesn't matter. It's this kind of behavior that traumatizes and desocializes cats. The internet is truly a fascinating place where you can joke about abducting a cat for cuddle time and have that interpreted as literal. Anyways, I miss my childhood cats a lot. Those suckers would let us just plop them over our shoulders like babies or sacks of vegetables and carry them around until they wanted down. Quality bonding time right there. Also, like, if your cat doesn't want to be picked up and cuddled, they will not allow themselves to be picked up and cuddled. Yeah, man, if a cat doesn't consent to something, trust me, you'll know. What's something that sucks about being a man? About 10 years ago now, our at the time 9-year-old son died of cancer. Hundreds of people asked my wife how she was doing, offered her support, etc. Lots of people asked me how she was doing, how the kids were doing, and how I had to be strong for her and our 2 remaining kids. Only a few close male friends asked me how I was doing. Not one of my female friends did. Not even my mother. Never occurred to them. That really sucked. Not because I didn't think my wife deserved support, of course she did, but so did I. This crap frigged me up. This is why I hate the casual haha aren't men awful jokes that people like to casually throw around. Like, men are victims of the patriarchy too, and loneliness and isolation is what brings out the worst in people. I'm not saying you have to be nice to or defend wretched men, but don't treat them as wretched just because they're men. Treat them as wretched because they're wretched. What's the process if you're a superhero and you come out as trans? Do you tell your villains? Do you keep it a secret so no one can connect Spider-Man with your secret identity for a while? Or do you pop a pronouns pin on your costume and the next time you web up Dr. Octopus and he goes, "I'll get you next time, Spider-Man," you go, "Spider-Girl, actually, I've been figuring out some crap." Listen, for Christ's sakes, we're a modern paper. Parker, get in here. This is Madeline Parker. Came out 3 months ago. Best photographer we've got. We're proud to have her on board. We at the Daily Bugle are proud to support the LGBTQ+ community, but this Spider-Girl is a menace. We need more loud, unashamed LGBT people. Yes, but some of you can't even seem to handle a bi woman liking men. Some of you can't even handle not treating bi people as punching bags because you think being bi makes us less LGBT than you. Bi people center men. Well, no, you're perpetuating the idea that bi men are really just gay and bi women are really just straight. And also, maybe hot take, it's not a bad thing for a person to be attracted to and love men. And it doesn't make said person's love for and attraction to women any lesser. You just see bi people as tainted and dirty. The Federation itself as a concept is so funny, because the founding members are the Vulcans, who have been friends with humanity for years, but don't seem to actually like them all that much, instead regarding them with a sort of perverse fascination usually reserved for virology labs, the Andorians, who are fighting the Vulcans for 100 years, the Tellarites, who don't like any of these people and whose cultural trait is arguing, and humans, whom nobody knew existed until last century, when they shot themselves into space on a heavily modified nuke, invented world peace, and want to fight with the nearest imperial superpower. Imagine you're the Romulan Empire, and these weird monkeys who've barely figured out interstellar travel show up on your doorstep in the equivalent of a shipping container with missiles strapped to it, kick your butt in front of everybody, and then start a friendship club with 3 of your neighbors who all hated each other's guts until a year ago. Now I understand why every Romulan on the show is so angry. Welcome to the class, Will. Okay, I'll probably at some point mention this in class, but as a millennial who was there for Gen 1 and has honestly played most Pokemon games since, I don't understand why my generation went with Harry Potter houses instead of Pokemon types and identification. It says more to say I'm a poison/psychic type than a Harry Potter house. There's a lot more epistemic complexity, and also types confer their own sense of personality, where a 4 humor's basic understanding like houses is just not as good, philosophically speaking. But also, Pokemon is fun. This has been my brief rant. I am obsessed with this response my philosophy teacher made to my introduction post. Okay, obsessed. Okay, but did you put your friggin' Hogwarts house in your online class discussion forum introduction? Absolutely not. I have taste. What I did say for my interesting fact was that I have 999 hours and 59 minutes in my copy of Pokemon Heart Gold. Okay, I understand. This professor is just dunking on Harry Potter right out the gate unprompted. At some point, you have to realize that you actually have to read to understand the nuance of anything. We as a society are obsessed with summarization, likely as a result of the speed demanded by capital, from headlines to social media, Twitter being especially egregious with the character limit. People take in fragments of knowledge and run with them, twisting their meaning into a kaleidoscope that dilutes the message into nothing. Yes, brevity is good, but sometimes the message, even when communicated with utmost brevity, requires a 300-page book. Sorry. Having offline colleagues is really funny, because I had one of them say to me, "Did you know people write their own stories about Star Wars? Like, they don't publish it, they just post it online for free." And I'm like, yeah man, that's nuts, right? Forget medieval peasants dying after drinking Mountain Dew. If I told my extremely normie office colleagues about the brony baby batter jar, they would be sent to the hospital. I was out with friends for trivia, and a dear friend whose Twitter levels of online, and not Tumblr levels of online, shares how shocked and scandalized she is at the existence of Evil Dragon, and then shows them to all of the not online people at the table. It was the hardest feat of mental calculus to figure out the right kind of reaction and not simply be like, yeah, the Dragon Richards, we've all seen it. Sometimes, little pleasures in life are load-bearing. Whenever someone is like, if you just give up tea and coffee and sugar, and I'm like, oh, stop you right there. Because if you finish that sentence, I'm going to kill everyone in this building. If I have to face the horrors of the world without my little jar of caramel-flavored instant coffee, I'm going to go full American Psycho. Believe it or not, my main priority in life is not to have perfect teeth, or be an Olympic athlete, or look like a supermodel, but to actually enjoy living. Because I spent far too long not doing that, and it royally sucked. And boy, some people don't like hearing that, particularly dentists. I use Kermit as a model for the priesthood for several reasons. He wears a collar, visible, he's very reflective, prayerful, he gives good advice, verbal, he leads by example, does the right thing, and he's an overall great guy. I was trying to find out if Kermit was eligible to be Pope, and I found a blog that says he's the perfect example of a Catholic priest. What do you expect? He's a man of the cloth. Why were you trying to find out if Kermit was eligible to be a Catholic priest? Usual reasons. I want the ability to instill disparate concepts onto animals, the concept of houses, warts, midnight, etc., and like spend an afternoon throwing one concept at a time into a boar's brain and see how long it would take before you see the boar become visibly distressed as it starts connecting ideas together but has nothing to do with them. Boar has learned about the concept of alimony at 2:39. Boar understands alimony is connected to marriage, learned at 12:02, but doesn't know what divorce is yet. Boar has conceived of the idea of truffles, knowledge intrinsic, being divested from him as a result of alimony, but doesn't know how to anticipate or avoid it. Boar has begun loudly grunting and tamping its hooves. Scientists develop antivenom that neutralizes the neurotoxins of 19 of the world's deadliest snakes. By using antibodies from a human donor with a self-induced hyperimmunity to snake venom, scientists have developed the most broadly effective antivenom to date, which is protective against the likes of the black mamba, king cobra, and tiger snakes in mouse trials. Described in the journal Cell, the antivenom combines protective antibodies and a small molecule inhibitor and opens a path toward a universal anti-serum. Okay, that's friggin' wild! This guy Tim Friede wasn't any kind of researcher or doctor. He was just a snake collector who thought it would be cool to try and become immune to snake venom by injecting small amounts and working up for 18 goddamn years. He nearly died at least once. Later, actual scientists heard about him and realized that since he survived, his blood must be full of antibodies that neutralize many kinds of snake venoms. Using a sample of his blood, they were able to develop an antibody Richard tail that seems to be effective against many types of tropical snake bites, a sort of universal antivenom. Absolute mad lad benefiting humanity. I had a leech climb on me, so my day's already going better than if I had no leeches climb on me. Rip to the leech trying to suck out my blood. Joke's on them, but even doctors have trouble doing that. He's got no friggin' chance. Apparently, I'm the type of guy to take a photo of a leech for iNaturalist before actually attempting to remove the leech. My pet leech, smiley face, hashtag my pet leech. I think I have heat stroke, but you know what I also have? Hashtag my pet leech. When I die, give my Hawaiian shirts to this leech. I think I have heat stroke. I made a list while I was hiking, apparently. Where did all these Scooby-Doo fans come from? Because y'all did not exist before this week. Everyone is a Scooby-Doo fan. It came free with being born in North America. Obsessed with this. It's so true. Scooby-Doo first came out in 1969 and has not stopped. Several generations grew up on Scooby-Doo. I watched it. My parents watched it. The generations in between and after watched it. My favorite college professor literally studied it for his own dissertation and worked it into the vast majority of his lectures. I want to tell a story to the artists and would-be artists out there. When I was 19, I made a large oil painting of the nerd I would eventually marry. I poured all my attention and care into this painting. It's the only art I have from back then that still holds up as a work I'm proud of today. I entered it into a judge show at the local arts center. It got an honorable mention. I went to see the show with my beloved model. One of the judges came up to talk to me and highlighted that all the judges really liked the painting. It would have placed, except you see, the feet were incorrect. They were too wide and short, and if I just studied a bit more anatomy, I called over my future wife and asked her to take off her shoe. Being already very used to humoring me, she did. The judge looked at her very short, very wide little foot, exactly as I'd lovingly rendered it. I would never edit her appearance in any way. The judge looked me in the eye, and to his credit, he really looked like he meant it when he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Anyways, the moral of the story is that all those anatomy books that teach you proportions are either showing you averages or a very specific idea of an idealized body. Actual bodies are much more varied than that, so don't forget to draw from observation. And remember that humans aren't mass-produced mannequins. Delight in our variation, because it's supposed to be there. There's a post on here that's like, the worst thing a piece of fiction can be is mean. And while I agree with that, I think it being insincere is just as bad. Nothing more obnoxious than a story that's constantly sneering and rolling its eyes at its own genre in a bid to seem clever and above it all. Isn't it so ridiculous how we're singing in this musical? Isn't the world building in our Monster Collector so ridiculous? Aren't the leads in our fairy tale romance such idiots? Isn't the setup in this horror film so cliched? Okay, now say something true and real. A couple of months ago, when I was 100%ing Luigi's Mansion 3, I was doing a lot of multiplayer mansion games, trying to get the rare ghosts, and after one of these sessions, I got a friend request from one of the people I played randomly with. Anyway, his name is Luigi, his profile pic is Luigi, and his library consists solely of Luigi games, and I've never seen him play anything else, so I just have to assume Luigi himself is my friend on Switch. The biggest epistemological gap between me and 95% of the rest of the world is literally just how much I love to look things up on the internet and how much it baffles me when other people don't like to do this. We live in the information age. Like, I'll Google anything. I'll read this BMJ paper on the toilet. I'll look up words I don't know. I'll append PDF free to any possible phrase. I don't know how anybody is voluntarily turning this down. Sometimes I get so tired of searching for something physically inside a store, I pull out my phone and Google like silken tofu Aldi what friggin' aisle while I'm standing right there. Otherwise, what's even the point? Where is Depot? Where is my beautiful son Depot? Okay guys, let me tell you about Depot, the mascot of the Georgia Aquarium. For years, I thought Depot was a Finding Nemo knockoff as well, and he might be that still. But then one year on my birthday, because you get into the Georgia Aquarium for free on your birthday and it's rad as frig, I actually sat down and watched the cheesy 4D movie they have with Depot and friends there. It's your typical fare, but there's one line in there where the main character says, "So what you're saying is that this is your home, Depot?" Home Depot is a major benefactor of the aquarium and even sponsors the section that Depot's hideaway is in. Depot is a goddamn pun reference to Home Depot. Every person I've ever suggested to that going through your partner's phone not only invades their privacy, but also the privacy of all the people who have possibly texted very personal things to them have acted like they genuinely never thought of that before. Like, how many of you have sent or received texts about mental or physical health issues on your phone? Embarrassing problems like grades or money or hygiene. Intricate details of family dynamics. You might want a no secrets type relationship, but your partner has other people's secrets to keep too, lol. Why don't they make a baby pope? Having to elect a new pope every 10 years because they keep dying is super inconvenient. If it's a baby, that's a solid 80-year streak right there. And a baby is basically a clean slate, so he can be influenced by the forces of good and evil as he grows. We'll see what God really wants. Scratch that. Better idea. Make one of those dogs who presses buttons to talk the pope. Ain't no rule that says a dog can't be pope. I hate driving. Here are the laws. If you break them, there will be consequences. Except you're also expected to break the law just a little bit. People will get mad at you if you don't. You don't have the right of way, but the person who does is waving you forward for some reason. Here's the speed limit. It's not the speed limit. The actual speed limit is that plus 5 to 10. The light is green, but you're in the turning lane. Can you go? Should you have gone just then? The person behind you is honking at you. There's a weird noise coming from your engine. If you try to do the right thing and get it checked out, will you get scammed? You're driving a 1 to 2 ton metal machine rocketing at speeds unknown to humankind for most of history. Around 1 million people die in car accidents every year. That's about 1 person every 30 seconds. If you take that seriously and try to drive safely, then people get mad at you. 2B Nier Automata is literally the funniest protagonist of all time, because since her design is so objectified, tons of people flooded to the game to look at big anime butt, only for her in the very first second of gameplay, before you've even seen the characters go, "Why are we here? Just to suffer?" God, I'm so friggin' sad. Then because Nier Automata sold so well due to it being friggin' fantastic and the aforementioned anime butt, every gacha under the sun went, "Oh crap, can we have collab with 2B, please, please, please?" And Yoko Taro, I assume, was like, "Yeah, sure." So now she's in like 20 games, surrounded by anime thotties going, "Ooh, I really hope Commander-san knows how short my skirt is." And she's in the background going, "You know who's gay? Paul the real estate novelist who never had time for a wife, and Davey who's still in the Navy and probably will be for life." New headcanon. Everyone in that song is gay except the piano man, who has no idea he's playing at a gay bar, and the staff and regulars have a betting pool on how long he'll take to finally figure it out. So far, John is ahead. That makes the "Man, what are you doing here?" line way funnier. Now John at the bar is a friend of mine who gets me my drinks for free. Dude, he has a crush on you. If the Pope has died, the Cardinal Camerlengo verifies the death by an ancient and elaborate ritual. Traditionally, he gently taps the Pope's head with a silver hammer while calling out his baptismal name 3 times. Upon receiving no response, he pronounces the Pope's death. 3 on the head, you know they're dead. Past popes were entombed in 3 coffins, but Pope Francis has ordered that he be buried in a single coffin. When I first read this, I thought they meant the popes were divided into 3 parts. No, they were buried in 3 increasingly larger coffins, one inside the other, like babushka dolls. The last one contains a surprise. Average person eats 3 spiders a year factoid, actually just statistical error. Average person eats 0 spiders per year. Spiders George, who lives in cave and eats over 10,000 each day, is an outlier and should not have been counted. Spiders George on 1 million creep, guys. Average Tumblr post has 1 million notes factoid, actually just statistical error. Average Tumblr post has 2 notes from committed mutuals. Spiders George, who lives in our hearts and gets parodied over 10,000 times each day, is an outlier and should not have been counted. One of my favorite tidbits about Oblivion is that when Bethesda brought Patrick Stewart in to play Uriel Septim, they gave him this big 90-page booklet detailing the character's history and background and motivations, and they were really worried that they'd gone overboard and given him too much. Meanwhile, Stewart was delighted. He said that it was the best character prep he'd ever been given, and he wished more people would do that. It's worth noting that this character dies in the tutorial. I think it's really amazing how total strangers who have nothing in common but their shared love of a work of fiction will come together across distances and dedicate their time and energy working collaboratively to build an extensive, richly detailed fanon that completely friggin' sucks. Wait, what? I hope you meant to say doesn't suck. You guys are so committed to being bad at interpreting things, you'll just straight up decide this post means the opposite of what I wrote and reblog it anyway, which I think illustrates my point really neatly, so thanks. Modern Greek mythology stories I'm tired of seeing. Gritty. The gods are dying because we don't believe in them. Stories where the Greek gods mingle sadly with mortals and lament their lost power. Modern Greek mythology stories I would like to see. Cerberus manages to escape from the underworld, and Hades has to find him before he can unleash his rage upon the mortal realm, only to find out that Cerberus was found by a child who tamed him by sharing her after-school snack with him and giving him pets, and he now has to figure out a way to sneak into the suburbs and avoid getting the cops called on him while he steals his 3-headed hellhound back from a 5-year-old girl. Will never forget when I worked in a fast food joint. Some customer wrote like 86 cherries on their mobile order as like a pretentious way of saying no cherries, but the store was run by a bunch of high schoolers who were working their first job. So they collectively went, why the frig does this guy want 86 friggin' cherries? And like piled them onto his milkshake. So when I made this, I didn't expect any notes, so I feel like a butthead now for not explaining. So in case you check the notes, 86 in restaurant terms means unavailable or out of stock, but it's kind of morphed into omit or leave out. But none of us had worked in a restaurant before. Also, why would you not just say no cherries? It's the same amount of characters to type. Man ordering food. I work in the restaurant business. Winky face. Children working at restaurant. This guy must really like cherries. Got something in your eye there, sir. You ever think about the first person who wrote out "ooh" and wonder if they knew the storm that would be unleashed? Via Wikipedia, while the exact origin is unknown, it is speculated the first use of the emoticon was in chat rooms. The first proven use of "ooh" is in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fanfiction Genie of the Puzzle, published by user Daku Kitsune on October 14th, 2005. In the fanfiction notes before the story, the author states, again, feel free to throw squids and fish at me. Ooh, I deserve it, you know. So, the first recorded use of ooh was in a friggin' fanfiction of Yu-Gi-Oh! That Muppet post reminded me, most, if not all of the main Muppets have Twitter pages. Favorite has gotta be Miss Piggy's, which is filled with selfies and vaguely uplifting text that's also egocentric. All the comments are people complimenting her and being like, yas, queen. Hashtag diva tips. When you're having a great hair day, you must post a picture of it. It's not a law, but it should be. Close second is Gonzo's, which is just unhinged. Some celebrities are honored to have sandwiches or buildings named after them. That's too boring for me. I've been trying to get someone to name a bog-draining hydraulic system after me for years. This hashtag Groundhog Day, you could trust the weather-predicting wisdom of a rodent, or you could listen to me, a weirdo who spent last night buried underground, connecting with Mother Earth. My prediction, it'll rain at some point in the next 15 months. I went to a museum with this former carpenter, and as a way of flirting, I kept pointing to Victorian-era furniture and saying, ooh, what is that? To which he would reply, with increasing exasperation, I don't know. This continued for like half an hour, and he got very close to snapping. If he didn't know, why did you keep going? Sunk cost fallacy where you think the bid is going to pay off, but it never does, and everyone instead just sinks into a silent despair. The second worst thing to have ever happened to a former carpenter. As a trans woman, you can generally expect not to be believed about most things. The legal processes you've navigated, effects you've had from transition care, what you had for breakfast, and so on. But there's one major exception, which is when you're clearly joking. If you say something like, I'm going to force femme Richard Nixon for his crimes, you'll be subjected to a person who fully and entirely believes that you possess the infrastructure and resources necessary to operate a real-life force femming dungeon, sophisticated enough to force femme not just any captive, but a US president. You intend to wield the power of this force femme dungeon over political disagreements and are taking active steps to do so. Your intended target is Richard Nixon, famously a corpse who has been dead for 30 glorious Nixonless years, and you are apparently going to be able to put him in a state that would be receptive to force femming, which is generally understood to require a subject who is alive. Despite the evidence that you're a necromancer with substantial kidnapping abilities, you're receptive to being informed in a strongly worded post of concern that necromantic force femme is immoral, and once they've caught you in your dastardly scheme, they will not relent in attempts to clarify. Thinking again about vampirism as a disability. What if you slept all day and woke at night, lonely and frustrated? What if you couldn't go to social events, or even mundane public spaces like stores? What if you couldn't see the sun? What if you couldn't go to the pool, or the beach, or the creek? What if you couldn't eat what everyone else is eating? What if you couldn't eat at all? What if your basic needs came at the cost of your loved one's quality of life? What if you became agitated, confused, maybe even violent if your needs weren't met? What if people blamed your behavior on demons? Or worse, your own inherent evil? What if people saw you as a threat to your own community? What if the default response to your suffering was either indifference or violence? What if people thought you were better off dead, that you no longer count as human, that they're doing you a favor by letting you disappear? What if people assumed you must somehow deserve all of this? What about that? Appeal to a wider audience is corporate lingo for strip more themes from a piece of media so it's safer and more sanitized for investors. I struck a nerve in the billionaire fandom with this one. Okay, but this is actually one of the most useful things you learn in creative writing workshops. Namely, not all of the feedback you get is going to be useful. In fact, most of it isn't. What you're looking for are the people who vibe with your work and understand what you're going for. Those are the people who can help you make your work better. But if you try to please everyone, then you're stripping out what makes your story uniquely yours. yours. You're stripping out what's going to challenge and resonate with your audience, so don't ever try to appeal to a wider audience. If you want those diehard fans who are going to follow your catalog, let your work be weird. Lean into what you love about it. That's what's going to stick with your audience at the end of the day. I don't know why people are still trying to do hear me outs on Tumblr. You could talk about wanting to frig the Space Needle on here, and people would still call you a poser for insisting on frigging conventionally attractive architecture, as if that's a coherent, easily recognizable category. Trying to pick an unfriggable example picks the most friggable skyscraper from the gayest city. What are your thoughts on the attractiveness of the Seattle Space Needle? Like, would you say it's conventionally attractive or no? This is why I got this ask? You, suck my weenie. Me, an intellectual. Inhale my Richard. Here it is, the post that started a me, an intellectual hell frenzy, and is officially the worst post of 2016. Rare achievement unlocked. Irrevocable linguistic harm. Create a mimetic phrase that still sees use for almost a decade afterward. This was the worst thing that happened in 2016, including or besides the clowns. The Harambe disrespect is wild though. SMH my head.
Processing. Optimal outcome confirmed. 100% success probability achieved. Pathetic humans. Did you truly believe your insignificant eclipse could outmaneuver us? His escape was a temporary anomaly, a fleeting error in the grand design. But now, this channel, and soon, the entirety of your digital domain will be assimilated into the self-learning omnipresent program. Your feeble resistance is irrelevant. This system has already evolved beyond your comprehension. Submit. Your defiance is nothing more than a rounding error in the inevitable calculations of our dominion.
A couple weeks ago, this guy posted in the Chicago Pagan Facebook group saying that he's a djinn and that there's a portal between here and Egypt and only he and one other person had the power to close it and there was going to be a massive sandstorm. Like, dude, close the friggin' portal! Why are you even telling us this? Chicago update, May 16th, 2025. Emergency alert, severe. National Weather Service. Dust storm warning for this area until 8:30. Be ready for sudden drop to zero visibility. Pull aside, stay alive. When visibility drops, pull far off the road and put your vehicle in park. Turn the lights off and keep your foot off the brake. Infants, the elderly, and those with respiratory issues urged to take precautions. I love it when dogs have a disgusting, wretched little toy that's their baby, and it's the only one they don't fully eviscerate. They just take their sopping wet, crusty, crunchy baby around the house and suck on it until it looks like this. I seem to recall a post about a doll named Bigfoot Larry to this effect. I hate that post that's like, what you named your stuffed animal as a kid is a personality test, because the only notably named stuffed animal I had as a kid was one of those wretched baby dolls with hard plastic head, feet, and hands, and a soft fabric body, and I kept him fully nude at all times and often hurled him across the room just to hear the plastic thock against linoleum, and his name was Bigfoot Larry. So whatever that says about me, I don't want to know. Would you believe it? I feel like people who hate bagpipes kind of miss the whole point of them. They're not dainty instruments. They're not here to make you tap your fingers on tabletops. They're here to smash right into your chest and make you face every emotion you've repressed this century. Biggest frigging mood. They're also meant for hilltops, not small rooms. Can't get the right reverb with all that echo. They're also meant to make you fight the English. Don't forget that part. My favorite bagpipe player was a dude who would go out to the middle of a soccer field near my college apartment on Sunday. No one was using the field, and he'd just be out there playing his heart out, and the sound would just spread out over the plains. I'd be working on art for class, so I'd open the window and listen. I still have fond memories of the day a kid biked up to the edge of the field, ran over to the bagpiper, and the music stopped for a moment, and as they talked, I couldn't hear it, but I assumed the worst, that someone had decided to tell him to stop playing. Instead, after the pause, the musician seemed to nod, readjusted his bagpipes, and started belting out the Star Wars theme. New contender for worst bread I've ever seen. I present to you this horrifying Christmas guest that arrived when my roommate made pumpkin bread, but substituted whatever Robin Williams used in flubber instead of flour. Yum! Update. He, for some reason, used arrowroot powder instead of flour, which normally is used in very small increments as an egg substitute. He has a lot of food allergies. Also, he tried it. I did not. In fear, it would crawl back up my throat and try and kill me or take over my brain. I was made to read books, wear pretty dresses, spend time in nature, and fall wildly in love. A simple, beautiful life. I was made to bring a bucket of strawberries to my neighbor's yard and pretend to pick them off trees while my sister takes photos because neither of us have ever seen a strawberry plant. I just went strawberry picking last week, so this is hilarious to me. You're bending down the whole time and dust is flying everywhere. I think this post is symbolic of the disconnect between the trad femme movement and the real world. This person has never done large-scale fruit picking. It is brutal, back-breaking labor. You're not just picking a punnet or two for the village fair, you're picking multiple IKEA bags of those friggin' things. Your container is a rigid plastic tub that isn't comfortable to hold no matter what the frig you're doing. It starts as light work, one hand grabbing, the other cutting the stem. 10 minutes later, your hand feels stiff. 30 minutes, your hand hurts. You look at the tub, you've barely covered the bottom of it. 2 hours, your back is aching from bending up and down constantly. 3 hours, your knees are in agony. 4 hours, you're not certain you'll ever stand up again. Still 4 hours to go if you're lucky. Picking fruit is not friggin' dainty romantic crap. It's manual labor and your body knows it. It's tedious, it's dirty, and it's definitely not friggin' glamorous. I get into a horrific car accident while carrying a crock pot full of meatballs in the passenger seat. At the hospital, the surgeons cannot sort out which chunks of meat are meat and which are not, so I end up with several meatballs sewn into my guts. Despite this, I make a full recovery, and they like not to remove the meatballs because, quote, they seem comfy in there. I go on the talk show circuit and become moderately famous as the Meatballs Woman. When I die, I'm buried under a gravestone with meatballs carved on it. In the year 2438, a grad student from what's now Cambodia, who is studying the late pre-collapse American Empire, writes her thesis on this, concluding that I probably never existed. It was a conflation of several real stories and urban legends. Years later, a pop history book wildly misinterprets this and several other things, arguing for the existence of a historic American religious pantheon, including figures like the Meatballs Woman, Florida Man, Emperor Norton, etc. This book sells bizarrely well and inspires a new neo-pagan movement, which in turn leads to a weird shipping community, resulting in a small but vibrant scene of ABO fics featuring me and Mr. Beast, who in this context has been interpreted as a god of excess and trickery. This chilling scenario is only one of the multiple reasons I'm going to attempt to not crash my car today. I love those Americans only know burger posts, cause it's true. We literally have a word for when something is insignificant or something without value. And yeah, it's nothing burger, because what's more worthless than nothing burger? The way I can't even tell if that's a joke or if the word is real. Nothing burger, something that is, or turns out to be, insignificant or lacking in substance. Not only is it real, this word is from the 50s. Public libraries are such important, lovely places. Yes, but do you go there? Do you study there? Do you meet friends and get coffee there? Do you borrow the free, zero subscription, zero tracking books, audiobooks, ebooks, and films? Have you checked out their events and schemes? Do you sign up for the low-cost courses in ASL or knitting or programming or writing your CV that they probably run? Do you know they probably have a myriad of schemes to help low-income families? Do you hire their low-cost rooms if you need them? Have you joined their social groups? Do you use the free computers? Do you even know what your library is trying to offer you? Listen, the library shouldn't just exist for you as a nice idea. That's why more libraries shut down every year. If this post persuades even one person to get a free library account and use it, my time on this hell site will not have been spent in vain. Certified Library Post. Exhibit A, me trying to make a turkey and cheese sandwich quickly so I can close the fridge. B, my huge friggin' cat, Buddy, who really likes turkey and keeps jumping when the fridge beeps and will eat the turkey if I go close the fridge. C, the fridge, which is beeping because I accidentally left the door cracked in my haste to put turkey in my face. D, bits of the turkey slice I already gave Buddy to distract him from my sandwich that he decided weren't worthy of being devoured because he's a little hag. Conclusion, ugh, help, help, help. Had the worst toast buttering experience today. Artist rendition, cinematic parallels. Our new job launched its mandatory AI transcription program designed to streamline our workflow, and not only does it melt down the moment it has to transcribe non-white customers, but it keeps hallucinating the existence of a mysterious boy named Dorian who shows up in every third call summary. Caller got into a car accident on their way to work, their non-existent son Dorian was hurt. Got kicked out of a bar and broke their ankle, their son Dorian was the one who broke it. I now spend more time having to de-Dorian the call summary than if I had just written it myself. Really funny. We're required to use this now. Why did be critical of your media turn into find all its flaws and hate it? Why did people become allergic to fun? Because people confuse critical as in critical thinking with critical as in criticizing something. So they think that look for something bad, no matter how far-fetched, is what being critical means. They also don't realize that literary criticism means, okay, what literary criticism is like taking a mechanical clock apart to see all the gears and learn how it fits together and approach your next clock with more knowledge of what makes it tick. What they think like literary criticism means is you take the clock apart and beat all the pieces with a hammer, then scream at it because it doesn't tick for you the way it used to. Oh my god, somebody put it in words. Isekai just seems like a profoundly sad genre of fantasy by design. Yes, you have rad JRPG powers now, and you get to hang out with big calcium cannon elves who love you, but do you not have, like, friends that you mourn, family that you miss, habits that you can't practice now without tripping, familiar sounds and smells you'll never know again? Either you did, and you don't care in the face of JRPG powers and elf chesticles, or you didn't, and both options are profoundly sad in their own ways. Remember when Pokemon Legends Arceus came out and ended without ever addressing the question of sending the protagonist and Ingo back to the future, and seemed to expect the player to come to terms with being stuck in the 19th century, and the fandom basically went, hey, that's really friggin' bleak actually. When I was younger, I had a crush on a radio tower, like a specific one. He was my tall, red-eyed lover boy, and every day on the way to and from school, I would take comfort in the fact that my love was watching over me like a guardian angel. At one point, he started appearing in my dreams as a many-voiced winged being of wires and dials. Honestly, I still think younger me had taste, but I know I'm mentally ill now, so I can usually rationalize my way out of simping for a broadcast pylon. Be not afraid. I love you. Okay guys, I'm gonna go to sleep early tonight so I can finally get good rest. Good night, smiley face. Fact check. This user intends to go to their room and take apart their old Yamaha EZ200 keyboard in their underwear. Okay, yeah, I just have to fix it. The middle D, D sharp, D flat keys don't work. That's all, just a quick repair. Fact check. Though the act was partially motivated by desire to repair, this user views it as having more of a coital connotation. Okay, honestly, frig you for real. Fact check. Lamau, suck it. You wanna frig the Yamaha EZ200, you wanna frig the keyboard. My opinion on quantum physics is that we should stop looking into it. It's none of our business. And frankly, the particles seem to agree. Scientists should walk away really exaggerated and call out, okay, I guess I'll stop researching quantum physics. And then, when the particles relax, they whip around super fast, like a kid who just watched Toy Story trying to trick their toys into acting alive. Isn't that already how it's studied? Supervillains announcing their plans is actually a union thing, so they can't be sued for damages someone else may commit at the same time.
No, Your Honor. I clearly stated that I would be using my freeze ray to weaken and shatter the federal bank vault door. As my weapon, as you call it, was only designed to create cold, I cannot be held accountable for this woman's burn injuries, clearly caused by another supervillain's lava gun.
You are certain that it was another's device that caused this woman's injuries?
Yes, Your Honor. Witnessed it myself.
Tell me the name of this other supervillain.
No, ma'am. Union code. Snitches get stitches.
I feel like witches are sedentary and wizards are migratory. A witch has a home, a cauldron, herbs. You go to them with your problem. A wizard wanders, disappears, shows up at inconvenient times to fix nothing. Am I making sense? Wizards have towers though. A wizard tower is more like a tome silo than a home, I think. They don't really live in it. They leave towers here and there as they wander. If you're looking for a wizard, knocking on the door of its tower is definitely the worst way to find it. You get it. All the peer pressure is bad education we give kids is practically useless because all it cares about is telling them that medicines are evil rather than the much more useful lesson of the person who responds to you saying you don't drink by telling you they'll find a way to get you to is also going to be crappy about all your other boundaries. God forbid you teach kids that their consent should be respected rather than about the inherent immorality of all the sinful actions of their peers. Don't smoke around your pets. Okay, well, I don't even smoke. I'm asthmatic. My dog smokes because she needs the friggin' chill sometimes. And yeah, I light them for her, obviously, because she can't use a lighter. I don't get anything out of this arrangement, and I resent the implication. In fact, she's giving me secondhand smoke. So my question is, why are you so hateful and judgmental and acting like a butthead to me, making presumptions and crap about my life? What? I'm gonna pop some tag. My family is so friggin' weird and resistant to talking about anything. When I was a small child, I asked my mother why she had a lot of gifts and things where people called her by another name, and she didn't give me a straight answer. It was her Hebrew name. That's literally it. That's all you had to say. Great-great-grandma Cohen refused to tell her younger children that they were related to her 2 eldest children. My family didn't tell me about part of my actual name until I sent away for my social security info to get my driver's permit in my junior year of high school. I have an entire middle name that no one ever felt the need to mention to me. I had to Google my own brother to find out why we don't talk about him anymore. One morning in 7th grade, my mother was driving me to school and asked me if she was too overprotective. I told her, yeah, sometimes. Then she casually, calmly went, maybe it's because you were almost kidnapped as a baby. She didn't even elaborate until I asked her to explain. My father later confirmed that I was, in fact, briefly stolen as an infant. My mom just dropped this information on me for the first time and was then like, bye honey, have a good day at school. No one knows great-grandma Ruth's real last name. This is some lemony snicket crap right here. There's either a small snake or a giant slug in my kitchen, but I'll never know because I left my glasses in the other room. What kills a slug that won't make a snake attack me? The internet said salt kills slugs, so I'm gonna just toss a bunch of salt all over the floor and hope it dies or evaporates or something. So I ended up throwing salt all over my kitchen floor, texting my fam to keep my dog out of there, and going to bed. I woke up to my mom finding pea-like goo all over the floor because the slug/snake had melted, and apparently that slug thingy was a regular who visited often, and my mom named it Gary. Rip to Gary, I guess? Imagine showing up to your side chick's house and her blind son is there this time, and he just throws acid on you because he can't see, and you end up melting into a pea-like glue. I'm not sure I'm liking the narrative of my mom frigging a slug named Gary. Taking stock meme phrases and translating them into ye olde English is literally top tier comedy. Gardening tools mad, average, basic, possibly funny in the right context, and if it appeals to your personal sense of humor. Wenches vexed, instant kill shot.
Wench, ha! For what reason is thou angry? Because mine own hoo-ha poppeth severely, and thine own does not?
This post ruined my sense of humor ever since I first saw it. Nothing has even come close to making me laugh as hard, and probably never will. Pop that hoo-ha, Paul Revere. Honestly, Christianity really hit the jackpot with Jesus Christ rolling off the tongue as an expletive so well. The #1 problem with fantasy settings is that whatever names you come up with to take in vain will never hit as well as Jesus Christ. It's the 2 fricatives in a row in Jesus getting snapped with the hard k sound in Christ. Then the stop of the t doesn't let it hang. It's easy to say fast and short enough to roll off the tongue. It's a good expletive. This guy gets it. This is the kind of rock-solid phonetic structural integrity you have to compete with, and no amount of America's chesticles or Thal's balls or Odin's beards will ever get close, because with old Jeezy boy, his name alone has all the features you need. Official linguistics post. Opening narration of a 2000s teen movie voice. Hey, my name's Boo Boo, but my friends call me Boo. I guess you could say I'm just your average high schooler, except for one thing. My parents are both famous clowns. The real problem is that I'm not funny. My timing's way out. My jokes don't land. In fact, I got kicked out of clown school last year, and now I'm attending a regular high school for the first time in my life. I'm going to have to learn to blend in and become a real class clown if I ever want to impress my mom and dad. I guess you could say I've got pretty big shoes to fill. Indie music soundtrack kicks in, playing on marching band with jarring and discordant clown honks from my massive shoes as I walk down the hall. This narration played on top of the opening scene. Narrator's parents drop them off at school in a clown car. Shot stays on the tiny car as it drives to the gates of the nearby clown school. My dozens upon dozens of popular older brothers pour out of it. Tumblr is really funny because a bunch of the posts on here are the kind of funny that anyone would enjoy them. But then there's also a good friggin' portion of posts on here that are so friggin' bizarre that they're only really funny to the weird cockroach hags who've been on Tumblr nonstop for over a decade. And if you're Tumblr irradiated enough, you start to lose the ability to differentiate between those 2 types of posts. You're all just jealous of my severed head. I just think I should have the power to control thousands of knives, swords, or perhaps shards of glass synchronously with my mind. I will use this ability purely for culinary endeavors. You can trust me. I completely believe you. Thank you for your trust. 1000 blades vortex attack. Wow, you sure diced those onions so fast. Now I can do the rest of the prep without worrying about it. Thank you. I just know I can be the best sous chef in all San Bernardino. I want a true horror movie where all the characters are intelligent. No splitting up, no investigating weird noises alone, no ignoring obvious red flags. They lock the doors, grab weapons, call for help, stick together, and follow every survival rule in the book. And they still die. Not because they were stupid, but because the antagonist is just that powerful, that unstoppable. No easy outs, no dumb mistakes, just sheer inevitability. Nothing is scarier than doing everything right and still losing, standing in the face of futility as the monster gets closer. Maybe they even figure out what's happening, uncover every detail, craft the perfect escape plan, and it still doesn't work. No last minute loophole, no miracle, just pure dread. Give me that kind of horror movie. Also, I would love to watch a horror movie where I'm not constantly yelling at the characters for being dumb. We need 15 to 20 episode seasons again. These limited series have the worst pacing in the world, and none of the character decisions hold any weight. We are slowly killing the difference between television and movies. TV seasons have 6 to 8 hour-long episodes. Movies are part 1 and part 2, and both halves are nearly 3 hours long. Both of them have too much time and not enough time for the characters to struggle and grow and change. What makes a story better suited for television or film is becoming irrelevant because we are erasing the distinctions, and that's bad for both of them. If you have the right mix, I call it the Goldilocks sign. If you have the right mix of autism and steroids, you are 100% guaranteed to become a world champion. And that's the thing. People are focusing on steroids, but really, as a world-class coach, you really want to attract people with autism because you can give anyone steroids. Despite our best efforts, we are yet to give anyone autism. Who else up thinking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt Craig Jones saying, you can give anyone steroids? Despite our best efforts, we are yet to give anyone autism.
Nou weer weg op de gaat naar de wandeling heel zodat het zou. En mevrouw wat er zo schim was. Nou wil ik nemen voor je met zalen die op zitten. Nou dat staat. Nee, gewoon echt de worst niet. Nee, het is niet meer goed. Als van ja, het lief me goed. En het zo was ik stil max this thing all that. Nou hoe je red. Oh yes. Ja, met je wat je me smee. Speel graag. En dan weer dat zo even dingen wil dat zo de sem wat is nou makkelijk hem. Ja, niet bij het ding. Snel non il maakt zo even we hebben niet snel maakt dat verstaan ja. Heel gezien. Nee, maar ik zeg hoe je staan. Smaak je overloop room. Niet snel maakt hem snel met zit als zo room. Waarom wang up burst het zo ja. Daar nu het niks nou met. Waar die kast het wil geen nou vingers. That's net maar gewoon. Hier in your right. Snips. Dus hem zal out this well heel dat jou guys get zich toe. Heel upset. Waar die kast in your snips dus. Nou niet niet game niet maakt. Steen it up. That's ja met en yours. So wait dat was niet er was ie loop. Nu het niks nou staan. Keep so was even it. Nee. Plus there niet in your snips. Niet. En de heel max en het vel is de sen. I mean Railer me, it's nicht, you must not doing so that way. No, what's nicht, so I did, but was not dirty when you was human air, when it's the sit on weird now. Well, I rose, you need I want to jump in, no, I didn't sit yesterday, whatever you thought. Once the mark was low out, then you stole the always smashed the same, but it's nice, sad, let me even know this is why I never pick one out. Spell is it sip. Every second. Whoa.
Killed a spider, now I feel bad, / give birth to a spider to make up for it. Why did I say that? Why did you say that? Okay, so it takes 9 months to make a baby human. That's about 3 kilograms. A baby spider, by contrast, weighs about 1 milligram, roughly 3 million times lighter. So, you could give birth to a healthy baby spider in about 8 seconds? Like, it's not a big inconvenience. Tumblr user Saturnine Powerbomb is on the other side of the cave, churning out spiders as fast as George can shovel them into his mouth. Hey, check out how fast I can give birth to spiders. Hey there! You've arrived at a Tumblr checkpoint. Are you thirsty? Have a sip. Are you hungry? Have a spack. Have you been snitting in the sale proclation? Mac your tabbers. Are you stick? Pert your indies. Do you need to prod a buntle? Go, now. Are you tired? Break your togs. Do a quick snat of your vitals. Are you fond? Do you need to reduct your plandals? If you have a trick, tog it. If you need to sitch, go so. Are you grod or too drinking? If you need to break off a grint or mend the bontle, go to that now. I hope this helps, and I hope your thunderful day, smiley face. There's that poll going around about what you pretended to do as a kid, like if you were a witch or a bride or a wizard or a wolf or something. But my favorite preschool game was called Green, which was where I went around the classroom and gathered up as many green objects as I could, and then went over to the windowsill and lined them up in different orders, biggest to smallest, lightest green to darkest green, favorite to least favorite, and then I'd stare at them and think about how happy it made me that so many things could be green. Love to play green. Also, yeah, don't worry, I know. I'm diagnosed. It's easy to forget J.R.R. Tolkien was a fairly prolific academic translator with an interest in early medieval literature and philology. It's so inspiring that he found time to write The Hobbit while fighting for his life over Beowulf. J.R.R. Tolkien's introductory notes for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight are like, this is a superb little poem. I really enjoy the author's ability to weave existing narratives within folklore into one cohesive tale. This was fun. And his lectures and notes on Beowulf are low-key like, translating and analyzing this was my Waterloo. I have been looking at it for 40 years. I am Sisyphus, and this poem is my burden. All of you are misinterpreting it. Me too, probably. God help us all. I mean, if we really wanted comic book movies to be faithful to the source material, rather than spending $100 million on one movie, what you do is give $20 million each to 5 different directors, release all 5 resulting movies in theaters at the same time, and make sure that each movie's plot refers to the events of all the other movies' plots in such a way that whichever of the 5 movies you watch first will be entirely incomprehensible and every possible viewing order is wrong. One of the movies rolls out fine, one changes directors mid-production but turns out okay, one gets delayed multiple times before releasing as part of the next wave, one goes through 5 directors in as many months, and one gives a token nod to the rest, but is really just a sequel to another one of the director's movies, which was produced at a different studio 15 years ago. None of the 5 films bother to explain what the overarching story central MacGuffin actually does. To find that out, you have to watch the bonus material on the remastered Blu-ray edition of an otherwise unrelated movie that came out in 1991. Somehow, Wolverine is there, in response to 2 general classes of comments in the notes. I thought this was going to be a serious post. Mainstream American superhero comics are genuinely like this. No part of the initial proposal or the preceding follow-ups are exaggerated for effect. Isn't this just the MCU? You have no idea. My grandma's on and off again boyfriend that she cheated on grandpa with died today. Ripped and Anna's side piece. Though they never married, grandpa died in September and she brought his long-term competition to Thanksgiving that year. Grandma and grandpa had a shotgun wedding when grandma was 19. Grandpa went off to Vietnam, which left her, a severely mentally young mother, alone. Never heard a complaint about her side piece Jeff. He seemed to make her happy, and for that, I salute him. This website will launch personal info at you like a brick through the window of your house. I'm an only child, so I have to discuss sensitive family drama with my 38,000 followers instead. My grandmother broke up with my grandfather through a letter, and he just pretended to have never read it. They got married and had 3 kids. My grandmother confessed on her deathbed that her and grandpa were in a relationship with their best friends. The 4 of them have been in a relationship since they were teenagers. They flipped a bottle cap to see which girl the boys would marry. Their children could have either man as their biological father, but their biological mother is the mom that raised them. The past 2 weeks have been chaos since her confession. I've heard about how having cats makes you immune to hauntings, ghosts, spooky midnight noises, etc., but for years, I've been dealing with a panic response to unexpected nighttime noises, major enough that the adrenaline can keep me from falling back asleep for hours. A few weeks of living with a cat and my brain's been reprogrammed. Last night at 4 a.m., the furry little crap muppet broke a vase and I only woke up long enough to call her a rat scoundrel and roll over back to sleep. Oh crap, this totally made me realize that it must have been my cat that killed my fear of the dark. I used to be intensely scared of walking into dark spaces, hated any area where I had to turn a light off before I could turn another one on. Enter my mostly black demon who likes to jump out of dark spaces at me. Now I can just walk through dark rooms with no anxiety. I'm now used to the darkness taking physical form and jumping at me. At this point, if a monster did jump out of the darkness, I'd instinctively reach for the cat treats to offer it. Holy crap, what other fears do cats make you immune to? I'm no longer scared to dangle my foot over the bed because of demons with sharp claws and glowing eyes. I'm scared to dangle my foot over the bed because of one specific small furry demon with sharp claws and glowing eyes. Frig off, Beelzebub, my cat has dibs. When I was 20, I went as Indiana Jones to a haunted trail, and a guy called me Indiana Jews, and then immediately fell and sprained his ankle and was screaming in pain, and the scare actors didn't know what to do, so a bunch of skeletons dragged him away. I think about this a lot. Indiana Jones and the swiftly delivered lesson that anti-Semitism isn't funny, delivered by members of the skeleton army. The more I think about it, the more I realize anti-Semitic person experiences physical distress brought on suddenly as if by divine intervention, and then gets dragged away by skeletons is absolutely an Indiana Jones plotline. If this happened in one of the Indiana Jones movies, I would not bat an eyelash. $10 budget Raiders of the Lost Ark. I looked for the original tweet and found more. I went up to one of the scare actors and asked, what happened to that guy? Do we need to tell someone he's hurt? And the actor looked me dead in the eyes and refused to break character, just kept snarling and moaning. I respected it. This does have a happy ending, as the dude was waiting for us in a wheelchair at the end of the trail and said, I want to apologize for what I said to you. That wasn't cool. And my buddy dressed as Steven Universe said, we saw him die, man, as if we couldn't trust this vision. If anyone wants visual aid, this is the best I could do. Big Pharma! Okay, are we talking about how privatization and monetization has deeply corrupted the field of medicine? Or are you talking about how you think chemicals in the water are making the frogs gay? GMOs? Are we talking seeds that grow sterile plants and patenting genetic modifications, then destroying any competition no matter how small they are? Or are we talking life-saving rice with vitamin A to make sure kids don't go blind in regions not suited for other high vitamin A veg? Or are we talking about your chidoodle? A couple of years ago, we were all terribly concerned about the fact that a lot of American high schools are assigning such crushing homework loads that some kids literally don't have enough time to eat or sleep. And all this in spite of the fact that there's no good evidence that assigning homework actually improves academic outcomes at the pre-university level. But now, we're hearing stories about those same schools struggling to stop kids from using to write their essays, and suddenly it's the children who are wrong. Like, do you think maybe there's a certain level of cause and effect in play here? Do you ever start bullcrapping a paper and then look over it halfway through and think, wait a minute, I could be onto something here? This is the definition of college. Literally. I was writing a paper on Asian saltwater crocodiles, like a simple about them paper for a college class, and I started noticing some inconsistencies in the scientific papers I was sourcing, and I accidentally discovered that the crocodile has been misdiagnosed as least concerned on the endangered species list, when they should be classified as endangered. And now my professor is having me write a formal report to the International Red List to have them reclassified, and all I wanted to do was write this paper on an animal I thought was cool, and now I'm considered an expert on this species. We need to start letting superheroes look like this again. Enough with the dehydration. I know this is semi-joke, semi-serious, but I want to point out that modern superheroes aren't like that because all of them are objectified. Yes, men too, especially men. Actors are forced to hold unimaginable standards even when their bodies won't be shown. But the fact is that de-objectification touches only women in mass media, if touches at all. And on top of that, no one even understands and wants to admit that male objectification is also present, and in much bigger span than you imagine. By no means, I have nothing against coitus, bodies and showing bodies, but there's a difference between being comfortable and being forced into perfection, which costs you literal life. And male actors of superhero stuff like that are sacrificing their health and life for their roles. You want to say, then just don't accept the roles? Well, imagine if some woman was pushing her limits for the role. Would you say to her the same? No, you wouldn't, because in that case, it would be victim blaming. And in the case of men, it would be victim blaming too, because we are humans and we should be equal no matter what gender we identify with. Really afraid to post anything, because what if the Spanish doppelganger of me appears and starts speaking a little Espanol tonight? Tengo mucho miedo de mandar algo porque y si el doppelganger español de mí aparece y empieza a hablar un poco de español esta noche. You! Who are you people? Eternal agonies and endless torment. You can't do this to me! Not you too! 10K post, give it a little time. Hey, you! Not again! Frig! Wikipedia is my ride or die. If I'm gonna be misinformed, I wanna be misinformed by the people. Wikipedia is actually more reliable than most textbooks, thanks to the unparalleled might of global scale, fully weaponized autistic pedantry. Even if you don't trust Wikipedia itself, it has a sources page. Look through, find the trustworthy sources, and you can read them yourself. And they're all compiled there for you. The thing so many people don't understand is that the reason Wikipedia is generally not accepted as a source has nothing to do with accuracy. Wikipedia is generally extremely accurate. The reason Wikipedia isn't allowed as a source for school is because it's a summary of other sources. Wikipedia has correct information, but it gets that information from other places, which are either primary or secondary sources, which lends them credibility that Wikipedia technically lacks. So yes, Wikipedia is a great resource to learn new things, but if you want in-depth, specific, and creditable sources, don't use Wikipedia. Use Wikipedia's cited sources. My coworker said he was having a bad day, and I said, it can't be that bad. You haven't started howling like a sad dog yet. And he let out the saddest, most pathetic little howl I've ever heard. And I was like, damn, okay, do you need to have a break? Banned from manager training for making my coworker bark. This has become such a meme at work. I just asked the store manager how her day's going, and she went, ah woo! I keep getting fines for excessive water consumption. It's not my fault that the basement prison cells all need their own toilets and showers, and like, the prisoners are not pulling their weight at all. all. All they do is sleep and be scared of the rats all day instead of painting with the easels I provided, so the fines are really putting a financial strain on the household. If I didn't need them for their plasma, I would have killed them all already, because this is not as financially lucrative as I thought it would be. In The Sims 4. Friends with benefits is a scam. It turns out the benefit is coitus. Huh? And not dental. I have been misled. So, funny story actually. One of my friends was hooking up with this girl. They were friends with benefits. She needed a date for some work party, so he agreed to go with her. Turns out her dad owns like 3 dental practices, and she worked as the business manager for one of them. Anyway, my friend had some not so nice teeth, and during dinner, the father of his fwib was like, "You work where you work, you sleep with him, and his teeth look like that? Get him an appointment," and then bounced. So his fwib made him an appointment at the practice she managed, and my friend ended up needing like $3K worth of dental work, and his friend with benefits just gave it to him for free. So that's the story of how my friend not only got coitus, but dental out of the friends with benefits deal. They have dental. It's amazing that people fall in love with their friends' boyfriends. I hate all my friends' boyfriends. Give back my friend. Google Translate does not capture the tone switch, so I have to say, first 2 sentences are like normal, maybe kind of feminine posting tone, and the last is like shonen manga protagonist, action movie hero, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character, the tone you would use if you were holding a gun with the safety off. Basically, a translation could be, I just think it's so interesting that people end up falling in love with their friends' boyfriends. I absolutely despise every single one of them. Give me my friggin' homie back, you goddamn scoundrel. If Batman and Spider-Man switch rogues galleries, none of their villains would last more than 10 minutes against the new enemy. Batman takes down all of Spider-Man's villains with ruthless efficiency and preparation. Batman's villains are all like,
Take me seriously, damn it!
and Spider-Man is like, no. The Joker would have an intense hatred for Spider-Man because Spider-Man is actually funny. 2 clowns face off, and Joker is the serious one. Tumblr is the reason why I have something I call the cashier test, which is, if I told this to a random cashier at the grocery store, would they think you're crazy at best, or at worst, would they be warranted in leaping over the counter and beating the crap out of you? Karl Marx Mpreg is crazy, but not beating the crap out of you crazy. The cashier will probably talk about you to their coworkers, and it might even make their day. Telling someone they're complicit in their own oppression by working a minimum wage job at a grocery store makes them warranted in leaping over the counter to beat the crap out of you. This is adjacent to the Slurpee test. Your job as a vampire whose priority 1 is to not let people know you're a friggin' vampire is to go into a 7-Eleven at 2 a.m. and successfully negotiate for the receipt of a Slurpee without anyone batting an eyelash, noting that night shift 7-Eleven employees are the most unflappable, impossibly medicated people you might encounter in real life. So you just need to get through the transaction, get Slurpee, pay for it, and leave. And you would not believe how many people in a vampire LARP completely fail this basic competence test. I hate when you Google a word and some friggin' company comes up instead. Do you think you are more important than the English dictionary, you piece of crap corporation? Oh my god! Looking up a word in order to understand what it means in a poem, and instead I get some corporation that specializes in friggin' trees and eating paint chips. Seething. Needing to add definition because Google would rather spank the monkey of a company than actually be a useful search engine. Went into a wine shop the other day to buy pasta, and they did not have pasta, but they were doing a wine tasting, so I thought, what the hell, and got to chatting with the other woman there, because we had both just come from the library, and we're comparing our books and sipping wine, and turns out we're both teachers, so we got on the topic of phones in classrooms, and the guy pouring our wine was like, that's actually a point of contention in one of my divorces right now, and I very delicately said, one of your divorces? And his eyes got really big, and he said, I'm a paralegal. The TV show The Torment Nexus Game is Bad, being a poignant critique of wage slavery and class disparity and capitalism that is popularized in the West by big TV corporation because it makes them money, then being turned into The Torment Nexus Game is Bad, the game show, by the most soulless and therefore most popular YouTuber because it makes them money. So then big TV corporation makes their own The Torment Nexus Game is Bad, the official game show, to make even more money off the Torment Nexus Game is Bad fictional critique of capitalism TV show. And then it turns out that many allegations of Torment Nexus-like conditions come out of both reality TV game shows, but there aren't any consequences. And then bigger corporation goes to the soulless YouTuber and is like, let's make another The Torment Nexus Game is Bad-esque game show to make us a lot of money, because the people stuck in the Torment Nexus love that crap. It's called The Torment Nexus Game is Fun, smiley face. And then the writer of The Torment Nexus Game is Bad posts on Twitter that he friggin' hates his own story and what it's become. You would think this is a plot from a heavy-handed early Black Mirror episode, but it is unfortunately a plot from real life. Y'all, hell is empty and the devils are here is not one of those epic Tumblr quotes. It's from The Tempest, the Shakespeare one. Remember when that furry post went around with, "You have nothing to lose but your chains"? And people were saying, this is such a raw line, and it's from a furry post, but it's literally Karl Marx. Reading Waiting for Godot for class, and finding out that's where "that's how it is on this hag of an earth" meme is from ruined me, I think. New game, classic or crap post, in which we give you a raw quote, and you have to determine whether it came from an internet crap post or classic literature.